The SRA has announced the introduction of a new fund to support SQE candidates with their SQE1 exam fees. For more details, stay tuned, but only after the jingle.
If you wanna be solicitors, why don't you come and visit us at SQETV?
So let's give you a little bit of the background to the introduction of the SQE Access and Reinvestment Fund. And as the SRA say, and these are their own words, the fund was established at the outset of our contract with Kaplan, and financial penalties incurred by Kaplan have been paid into the fund when it failed to deliver agreed targets. The fund currently holds around £360,000. So as far as I can see, this is for want of a better word, a hardship fund, long awaited of course, because it's been almost 4 years since the introduction of the SQE, and this was something that the SRA had promised at the outset of the SQE, so it's very unfortunate that it's taken almost 4 years for it to be even talked about, let alone actually put into practice and implemented. But better late than never, of course. It still leaves me crying that it's woefully inadequate for the reasons that we'll be discussing later on in the video. But hey, we've got a fund here, we've got the process, hopefully for candidates to apply. With just make it better for everyone going forward. But a bit more background, what will it fund? Well, as far as we can understand, it will fund the SQE fees of first sitting candidates. With £360,000 in the fund, that means it will fund roughly 75 candidates who pay on round figures around about £5,000 a shot. So 75 candidates out of 10,000, it's a drop in the ocean, which is an issue that we'll mention a little bit later on. So who can apply? Well, using the SRA's own words, they say candidates who have the commitment and ability to qualify and are funding themselves, and whose means to do so are limited by significant personal barriers. Okay, we need a definition there of what significant personal barriers are. Helpfully, the SRA gives us something, although it's a little bit of a flexible definition. They say significant personal barriers could include, but are not limited to, having faced exceptional circumstances in pursuing their studies and aim to qualify as a solicitor. This could be due to a disability, time spent in local authority care, and family estrangement. Those are just a non-exhaustive list of some of the circumstances, but I think importantly what's not listed there is pure financial hardship, which is regrettable. But when you look at the amount of money in the fund, which is only £360,000, that's only going to fund 75 candidates paying £5,000 a shot. And therefore, just being from a cash-strapped background, meaning that you have to work alongside your SQE studies, is unlikely in practice in itself to qualify you alone for funding from this particular fund.
SQETV.
So if you're interested in possibly applying for some assistance from this fund, how do you apply? Well, I'm afraid at the time of recording this video, I don't know. And that's because we're at the early stages of setting up the fund, in that the SRA has asked for interested organisations who currently run schemes to support candidates through their SQE and qualification as a solicitor. They've asked them to tender for administering part or all of the fund. So it's very unlikely that anything will be available until the very earliest, I would say the autumn of 2025, when candidates are looking to sit the January 2026 SQE1 exam. But it may be later than that, I simply don't know. But watch this space, we will let you know as soon as the fund opens and applicants are able to apply.
SQETV.
So where does the money come from to fund the SQE Access and Reinvestment Fund? Well, in short, the money comes from Kaplan, the organisation that the SRA have a contract with to deliver the SQE. And in that contract, what happens is payments are to be made by Kaplan if one of two events are triggered. So firstly, if Kaplan failed to deliver on certain key metrics or certain deliverables as part of the contract in running the SQE, that requires them to make a payment to the SQE Access and Reinvestment Fund. Secondly, if Kaplan earn a super profit, that would also require them to make a payment to the SQE Access and Reinvestment Fund. But there lies the problem. The number and types of events that would trigger a payment by Kaplan to top up the fund are far too narrow. Now, of course, we'd all welcome the fact that because Kaplan made a huge error in January 2024 by telling a large number of students they didn't pass when they actually had, that should be a default event that should trigger a payment for the fund. Fair enough. And you'd expect that, but it's lose-lose, because if they hadn't done that, and if they had delivered as they're supposed to do, the fund wouldn't have been topped up. So great for the candidates going through the SQE, but really awful for those candidates that needed the support. The funding wouldn't be there for future sitters. So either way, it's lose-lose. And when we look at the second triggering event, remember what I said? It was where Kaplan earned a super profit. We don't really know where that super profit level is pitched, but I was at a conference recently and asked Julie Swan, the Director of Education and Training, a question, and in her answer she said that the level of super profit had not yet been achieved by Kaplan. I found that absolutely staggering, because there are 66 million reasons why we think that probably they are at the level of super profit. Why do I say that? Well, if you look at the 66 million pounds that they are generating, the SRA and Kaplan between them, for the SQE, there is a huge amount of money being made there, not least from SQE1, which, don't forget, is a multiple choice exam with very low overheads, particularly when they're recycling a large number of multiple choice questions for an exam that's largely marked by robots.
SQETV.
So in conclusion, whilst we are certainly fans of the principle of the creation of this fund, unfortunately the model by which it has been created is simply not going to work. And we're perplexed by the fact that the SRA even thought for a moment that it would be appropriate to commit to some sort of initiative like this by it being dependent on events that in a lot of cases are not going to happen. Eventually Kaplan are going to get their act right year on year, and I'm sure that the contract has now tied down the SRA to a definition of super profit to such an extent, meaning that probably Kaplan will never have to pay it. So we're left with the situation where there's a fund there, there's no pipeline of funding, and the only alternative that I think the SRA have is to renegotiate the contract with Kaplan when the time comes for them to renegotiate, to require them to pay a proportion of the turnover of SQE fees into that fund. And to me, I think it should be £5 million. If you're generating 60 million, £5 million should go into a fund, and that would help to sustain 1,000 SQE candidates each year. That would be sustainable, and that, my friends, is the answer, rather than relying on Kaplan messing up or Kaplan earning a super profit. Anyway, if you like this video, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe to the channel. We love it when you do. Leave a comment in the comment section, and if you do subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell, you'll find out as soon as our new videos drop. In the meantime, as we always do when we finish an SQETV video, we say it's now time for the jingle.
If you wanna be solicitors, why don't you come and visit us at SQE?